Next time I am going to be Rye.
All right. Okay, I got the recording has been started. Welcome everybody. Tonight's topic is introduction or team history. Get to know. How about that? A get to know team 2491 NoMythic. This is a new thing that we're going to try this year. I'd really like to see teams exactly what we're doing tonight offer up to say, hey, we'd love to tell you about what we do on our team, how we run our team history, the ethos, the mission, whatever you guys want to chat about for your team. We'd love to do that. I think this would be a great thing to do on a kind of a semi-regular basis, maybe once or twice a month. So if you're listening and you've got a team who's willing to present and do exactly what's going to happen tonight, please consider signing up to host a topic. I'll also say I had a question sent to me after the meeting last week, and someone was saying, hey, did we stray too far off topic? And when I'm hosting the topic, I don't care where we go. We can go wherever we want to go, wherever the conversation takes us. For you guys tonight, since you're the host, I'm going to let you decide how far we want to stray off the topic. And it'll be your job to get everybody back on target if you feel like it's gone too far. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to NoMythic. The floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, well, I'll just say there will be plenty of time for questions, and so that'll be the time to go off topic if there ever is one. But I can start with introductions. I am Dominic. I use he, they pronouns. Most of you probably know me or recognize me. I'm currently the Impact Captain here on NoMythic. And so, yeah, Liam and Rye, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Rye. I am the fundraising captain on NoMythic, and I use any pronouns. I've heard Dominic talk about these roundtables and go on and on about how great they are. So I'm super happy to be here.
Hey, y'all. My name's Liam. I use he, him pronouns. You can hear me? Yeah, great. Okay. Hi, my name's Liam. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the team captain here on 2491 NoMythic. And this is, I've joined these a couple times. They don't fit well with my schedule, but I made room today because I was super excited about this topic, obviously. So I'm excited to meet y'all again and dive in.
Yeah. So we're going to have just like a quick presentation. It's 19 slides. And then we'll have time for questions. So, and if you have any questions about the particular slide we're on, feel free to interrupt and ask for clarification or expansion of various things. So, yeah. So, passionately ourselves and encouraging others to be passionately themselves. That is sort of our focus. Recently, we have done a lot of work post-COVID thinking about what does our team sort of stand for, what is our mission and core values, and how does that play into how we build our robots and how our team culture is. And this is sort of how we phrased it. So we are passionately ourselves, and we encourage them, others to be passionately themselves. And so a lot of that has to do with inclusivity. So we accommodate people's needs and play into that, and play into their strengths on the team. So thinking about, you know, when we're having dinners, we accommodate people's dietary restrictions. And, you know, we make sure that people are doing the work that they truly love. We also don't assume, especially for our new team members, you know, that they know expectations, how to be a leader, how to include others, right? We know high school is a very formative time in life. And so we're both teaching students how to build a robot and how to be on a team, but also how to be good people. And that is an important part of our team culture. And, you know, it's important also on our team in terms of inclusivity to model that it's important and it's okay to be whoever you want to be, right? And so, like, one story that always comes to mind is when in 2022, we brought our pride flag to champs. And I wasn't on the team, but I've heard many stories of people like coming up to our pit in champs and being like, thank you for putting the pride flag up. Because, you know, champs is in Houston, Texas. That's not necessarily the most comfortable place or safe space for many LGBTQ plus youth, especially. And so, you know, being ourselves and saying we are out there, we are supportive of LGBTQ plus students was really important, both for ourselves and for our LGBTQ plus students on the team, but also for the broader FRC community there, so that we could say, this is who we want to be, and we are passionate about that. So, yeah. Liam.
Is this one mine? Great.
Yeah.
Sorry. We do a lot of really cool things here on NoMythic in terms of team culture and robot. So for the team culture side of things, we actually do 3 separate retreats. We do a team captain retreat, a mentor retreat, and a team retreat. So the team captain retreat, we make pizza, we chill out. It's really fun. The mentor retreat, the mentors all go up to a cabin and chill out. And then the team retreat, we all go to a cabin and chill out. And there will be more on that later. But it's a really big part of what we do here on the team. And during that time, we talk a lot about how to be a good person, how to work through tough conversations, how to give feedback, how to do all that. Again, I think we're going to go over more of that later. But a really big part of our team culture comes actually from the application process that we do. It's not something that a lot of the teams do, but it's really important to us. And that comes from specifically, we want people who are engaged on the team. We don't want folks who are coming in once a month and then bumming a ride to Duluth with us or whatever it is. We want people who are really engaged. And so by keeping our team small, and we keep people engaged, which is really important. Unicorn families, I don't know if we're talking about this much later, so I'll go over it now. That consists of us at dinner, spreading people out. I'm sure you all have different systems, but we do this about like once a week during the build season, where we just have people sit with people who they don't know. And that's to try and get the team to feel more cohesive. If you haven't seen us at competitions, we're very passionate. We're very purple. We're very out there. We're very loud. And that starts with being silly with each other. So we highly prioritize being silly with each other, making bad jokes, dancing, singing, whatever it is. And on the robot and programming building side, we do a lot of things. That includes Open Alliance. We build 2 robots every single year. That's a structure that not all teams have carried over since the olden days of Practice Spot, but we still do it because we love it, and there's other advantages to it. We have something called MERT. We decided to name it a funny name because it was funny to us. This is called Mythical Emergency Response Team. The idea behind this is that we take all of our technical captains, which consists of me, the programming captain, and the 2 build captains, plus 1 mentor, and we have them in and it's an emergency we can call an emergency meeting with them at any time if something's going wrong. So at some point, if we go over schedule, we'll call a meeting with them, with MERT, and we'll talk about, hey, this is going wrong. How can we fix it? And what's really cool about MERT, at least last year, and we'll have to go back over this year, is that ideally we don't get to a vote. Ideally, votes never happen. We all come to consensus. That's something we really value. But if we need a really quick vote, only students are allowed to vote, which is really, really cool. It means we trust our students to be able to make those tough decisions in those moments. And that means there's a lot of student and mentor collaboration. And then obviously we also do Open Alliance, where you can see anything and everything that we make during the build season, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that was a lot to cover in that slide. So.
Both Liam and Dom have mentioned a couple of times about our work to make sure that, the place on our team and the people who are on it is a welcoming one. And that all goes back to our mission statement, which is we strive to create inclusive STEM communities to grow the next generation of passionate problem solvers. Everybody in this call knows what you learn only matters as much as where you're learning it. You wouldn't want to study geometry in a packed room playing dubstep. So we really try to make sure that the space that our students come to is one that they feel safe and welcomed in. And to do that, we really work to give people the accommodations that they feel they need. These start with conversations, usually one-on-one with a mentor or a student or a student captain that a student trusts, and then we work to bring them what they feel will help make them feel safest on the team. So that comes in the form of having headphones during particular loud days at build when we're building the robot, or having a designated homework room, making sure that everybody has a meal that they can eat or time to step away when they need in practice. On NoMythic, we've had students who have never had any idea that STEM was something that they could love until they joined the team. And by having this space that, welcomed them, they, found this idea for their future. And that all comes back to just having this space, where people are included and people feel like they are part of the team. And that brings them so much passion for the work. Speaking of passion, that brings us to the next slide, our core values. Passion, accountability, gumption, and unity, or PAGU, as we say on the team. Our core values drive all of our work. When we look at everything that we do on the team, all of it goes back to at least one of these things. Passion is coming to that, one extra practice, even though you're totally exhausted from the week, and, just giving yourself into the work. Accountability is stepping forward and saying that you maybe couldn't finish a task, even when it's way easier to just, ignore it or blame it on someone else. Gumption is working on that really hard piece of code that has been driving you insane, but just giving it another shot altogether. And unity is that cheering in the stands, the, falling over on the grass from laughter at a team retreat. It's eating a meal together and just having the time of your life. PAGU is what we see as our work. It drives everything that we do, and we talk about PAGU a lot. They are very centered in our team, and they really always serve as a guideline for where we want to go next and who we want to be.
And I would like to clarify that the top right photo, we do not torture our students. That is hair dye at Duluth. We do not torture our students. I forgot to replace that photo. So thinking about the work we do, we also sort of need to think about what is the context that we have done this work in. Thinking about, where do we come from? So this is a fun little slide I put together. Our team likes Taylor Swift. And so I decided, what if we break down our 17 years as a team into different Taylor Swift eras? And so there are some important parts that went into this decision. I think the most important one is in 2012, we actually received our first award. We won the Team Spirit Award up at Northern Lights in 2012. Michael has a really funny story where everyone had gone home except for him and one other student that night because it was just not a great day. And then the judges called up Team Spirit Award, and there were like 2 students going down the high five line and getting the award. And ever since then, we have made sure that our entire team stays in the stands until the award ceremony is over. Just making sure that doesn't happen again. Also in 2012, which was really important, was one of our largest sponsors, Pace Analytical. The CEO of that company, we were giving them a sponsor presentation, and he said to us, why don't you go to Champs, right? You've been a team now for 4 or 5 years. What would it take to go to Champs? And you should go to Champs. And our team captain was like, yes, we can go to Champs, not knowing what that meant. And so, we didn't make it to Champs in 2012, but we did in 2015, which was super exciting for us. And so that sort of sparked that passion, as we talked about in our core values, to make competitive robots, to really be engaged with the work, sort of seeing how, robotics is a larger community. Part of that work to get to Champs was reaching out to higher level teams and saying, what do you do to get to Champs? And that actually was where we started making 2 robots. 2019 and 2020, those were really important years for our team. As you can see in the bottom there, we won Northern Lights in 2020 with KnightKrawler. And that was super excited. In 2019, we also had our programming captain and one of our lead mentors be honored with Dean's List and Woody Flowers. And so those were super exciting years. And then post-COVID, we've been rebuilding, we've been building back better, and sort of thinking about where are we going moving forward. So yeah, those have all been super exciting years, and we will see where we go in the future.
Couple of highlights over the past couple of years. We have qualified for champs 5 times. 2 of the regionals that we've attended, we have won first place. In 2023, we won our regionals first impact award. In 2022, we won the Carver Division Imagery Award at Champs. In 2023, we won the Team Spirit Award. Our team takes home a wild amount of Team Spirit awards. Liam mentions that. Liam, what did Ian Frankel say about it?
Oh yeah, some of you may know Ian Frankel. He did these for a long time. At Duluth last year, we won the Team Spirit Award, and that was because that was a roller coaster of a competition for us last year. He mentioned that we should have won the Ocean Noise Violation Award instead, but that's just because we're so passionate.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on being a very loud team. We have had 2 Woody Flowers Finalist Award recipients and 5 Dean's List finalists. Our work, and Liam right here was our Dean's List finalist last year. Our work as a team brings us an unusual amount of Woody Flowers and Dean's List finalists because while our last couple of years have been some of the most competitive in our team's history, the work that we have constantly been putting in has always gone into our culture and really highlighting leadership and encouraging it. And thus we've had the honor of receiving 2 Woody Flowers finalists and 5 Dean's List finalists. So those are a couple of highlights over our past couple of years.
Real quick to tack onto this. To tack onto this, one really cool thing, one really cool piece of pedagogy that we have on NoMythic is that we don't do things for awards. Awards are really cool, but we don't do them for the sake of awards. Instead, we do things like going out to a mushroom farm and moving logs and doing outreach and all of those things because we want to, we love it, and we believe it progresses us towards our mission of building passionate problem solvers. And so for a while, we actually denied doing chairmans at all, or what was chairmans. And so the reason why we now do them is to take a step back and recognize and take a moment to recognize the work that we have done in a positive manner. And that's how we use our award submissions. And we win a lot of Team Spirit awards and imagery awards just because we love being spiritful and we love being being loud. And that's why those come, which it's a different perspective than a lot of teams carry, which is just cool. Okay, this one's mine too. So last year was a roller coaster of a year. It was probably one of the best years we have on record in terms of engineering and strategy. We did not get very lucky last year, which was very unfortunate. In Duluth, we were the finalist captain on the Northern Lights side of the curtain. So that was with 2129 Ultraviolet and 6758 Otternauts. They were both fantastic to work with. We had a great time. We actually named that alliance. We named that alliance the Purple Otters, and we had a dance before each match. And it was a phenomenal experience. If you ever get a chance to work with either of those two, cherish it. We got the Team Spirit Award at Northern Lights after that's 2 years running of getting that award at Northern Lights, which is nuts. We have a lot of energy. We were the first, and then at 10K, which was our local competition, we were the first pick of the second alliance at 10,000 Lakes. Qualifications just didn't go so well for us because of all the things. But we were with 2502 and 3100. The match that we lost in the end, which was actually one of our best matches, and I was really, really proud of that one. Unfortunately, our alliance members broke. Dang it! Next time. The award we have never gotten before, Industrial Design Award at 10,000 Lakes, was really, really cool. This is actually a testament to a lot of the design work that we did on this robot. some of you may have heard the story. This robot was at a Week 0 style event called Shamrock Shakedown with CIS. It was set on a table to be worked on, and then the robot got enabled, and then the robot drove itself off of the table and went on its side and crumpled like a can. Let's say we're never going to let that happen again. And it was sad. It was really sad. We went back to the shop. We were defeated, but we got back to it. There was a lot of spirit involved. And because of the design of this robot, because of its modularity, because we have we have one of the largest funding teams in the Twin Cities, which is really, really cool. And because of that, we were able to put this robot back together in literally 3 days, and then it ran a 4-note auto on its 4th day. It was a nutty way of bringing this robot into the perspective of how well designed it was. And we told that story at 10,000 Lakes, and we showed how modular it was and how well designed it was, and we got that Industrial Design Award.
Up NoMythic. We've got about 34 students, and 6 of whom are captains, and then 17 mentors plus 1 junior mentor. Shout out Royce. We love Royce. NoMythic is also made up of 2 schools rather than just 1. Avalon and Great River. If you know anything about them, you know that they are tiny. They are very small schools. And thus, we combined to make 1 robotics team, being NoMythic. NoMythic intentionally caps itself with the amount of students that we take on, just so then that way we can better accommodate all of our students. We also allow that meaning also we can have a 6-to-1 captain ratio, just so that way our student leaders aren't totally overwhelmed with an amount of people that they have to look after. Great River and Avalon also have pretty limited STEM curriculums, so robotics fills in that gap. Having NoMythic available as an extracurricular gives a lot of students the chance to, find a future in STEM that they wouldn't necessarily have gotten by going to the schools that they do. And because of the size of the schools and compared to the size of NoMythic, 10% of our school student bodies are on our team. Which is a very funny number to look at. But it also means that robotics are pretty integral to each of our schools. And where some schools might have, their football team or their soccer team, our schools have their robotics teams. And I think that's pretty special.
I think also just in context, Avalon's highest math course is Algebra 2, and Great River's science courses in 11th and 12th grade, you can either take biology or enviro. And so, the robotics team sort of fills in for both science, like engineering and physics and whatnot, and also math. And at Avalon, you can actually get credit for being on the robotics team, and it actually counts towards your graduation requirements, which is pretty cool.
Now looking at our demographics, everybody in this call knows robotics is a very male-dominated field. Looking at even who the presenters are, we have 3 white male presenting people here. It's something that we are very aware of on our team, and something that we really try to always be working towards. One way that we do that is we have a lot of discussions about it. Just at our team retreat this year, one of our operations mentors, Lou, had an amazing segment where she talked about equity in robotics and the importance of making it a space for people beyond just cis white males. Our team right now is 44% identify as non-male. We always try to look at it as non-male rather than just girls and boys, because we have a very queer diverse team, and we want to make sure that we are not just splitting it into 2 genders. 23% of students on our team identify as trans, and 38% have an IEP or 504. I can speak as a, as a genderqueer, neurodivergent guy. We really always try to make it a priority that our team doesn't just become a space for, just the average, white dude. We want it to be a space where people are not confined and STEM is barriered. And we have been making, I'd say, some of the biggest strides towards it in the past couple of years than in our entire team's history.
Michael? Michael, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
No, my button just got pushed by accident. Sorry.
Okay.
Cool. So NoMythic has a bit of a funky leadership structure. It's one that some teams use, but we have an extra layer to it, which is really cool. So the mentors are at the top here. I like to think of them as more integrated with the captains. Hi, Michael. Would you be willing to turn off your mic? Thank you. So I like to think of the captains as more integrated with the mentors. But technically, they do have all of the power over us because they're adults, so they go at the top. Then you go to the team captain, which is me. I consider myself the captain of the captains. I'm also the captain of the entire team, but there are two ways of looking at that. And then, so I look over the impact captain, which is Dominic, who's here today, and Rye is our fundraising captain right there. And then there's one programming captain. We may expand that to two in the coming years, but that's what we have right now. We have the design captain as Aiden and the production captain as Clover, which are our build captains. If you notice something, when there are two captains in the same subteam, they are split up into two very distinct sections of that subteam. So Dominic, for example, takes on the impact side of things, which is like all of the awards, all of that kind of thing. And then Rye does all the fundraising stuff, which is money, grants, all that good stuff. Same thing on the build side. You have the design, which is CAD, and then production, which is machining. And then you also have the third layer, which are leads. So student leads are very similar to captains, except they're like one step below. The idea behind leads is that you can take a very, very specific section of the team and give them that exact thing. So on build, we use them as subsystem leads. There's one person, and we start with two in the fall, and if we need to add more for a subsystem in the spring, then we'll do that. But those two people are each in charge of a subsystem, and their whole job is to make sure that the CAD and the production flows, and it flows between them, and it works, all that kind of stuff. And then sometimes they take on two smaller subsystems or one bigger one. It just depends how the robot looks that year. In the programming subteam, you have a sensors communication, research development, and autos and teaching lead. So the autos and teaching one doesn't quite make sense, but it does when you take a look at when we're doing autos and when we're doing teaching. Teaching is really in the fall and autos are really in the spring, so it gets split up. Research and development is always really important. Anyone who has been in a programming team or runs a programming team knows exactly what I mean by basically the entire fall is just spent researching how can we do new things, how can we be better, what can we do differently, that kind of stuff. And then sensors and communication. And then we also have social media lead and events lead. The events lead is not like going to competition. Events is more like, hey, we're planning a fun team activity outside of practice. Here's the person who's going to handle that. Or hey, we're going to an outreach event. Here's the person who's going to handle that. So yeah, that's kind of what our leadership structure looks right now.
Yeah, and I think an important aspect of this is the fact that you see 13 students here for a team of 33. That means somewhere between a third to a half of students are in sort of titled leadership positions, which I think is really helpful when thinking about, college applications, obviously. But, also giving students the experience to sort of gain skills in leadership, right? These lead positions are really great entry sort of level positions for, students who are really passionate about being on the team. And so that's been super helpful for sort of developing those skills before necessarily becoming a captain.
Yeah, and the reason why that works is because we ask each student to both be a leader and a follower at different times. So like a lead is not always in charge. A captain is not always in charge. In fact, I ask most captains what to do most days. So that's why that works on our team. You're good. Annual schedule. So our schedule is a little bit funky. We're looking at improving our schedule from last year. And well, let's go funky. We're looking at improving our schedule from last year in terms of robot build. But in terms of like overarching schedule, we have our 2 regular season competitions that are guaranteed every single year. We do week 1 at Duluth, which is either Northern Lights or Lake Superior. It's looking like we'll end up on the Lake Superior side of the curtain with KnightKrawler and a bunch of other folks. I don't know who else is in this meeting, but anyway, then we'll also do 10K this year at the fairgrounds, which is going to be pretty cool. And then many years, we also end up at champs and state. We'll see about those this year. We're sure as hell gunning for it. And then for our off-season competitions, we do Get Your Gumi Get Together, which is in Duluth. It's really fun. You can see that picture on the bottom right-hand corner. We were with, who was that? Loretto and 5653, which I forget their name. Iron Mosquitoes. Thank you. And then we also do, we are looking at doing Twist for the first time this year, which is a very exciting event. Essentially what that is it is an event to push forward non-male identifying students. So specifically, the biggest change in rules is that only non-male people are allowed to drive the robot, which is a really big impact on a lot of teams. So it means you have to train in non-male drivers. You have to get them for driving practice, which means they're more likely to move into the driver's seat in the future, which is really cool. And then we also do mini trials, which I think many of y'all in here participate in. Essentially what that is you're given a very short amount of time in the fall and a brand new game, often with cheap materials. This game I heard has sharks in it. I haven't looked at it yet. And so the idea is that you have you throw together a robot with like an Andy Mark chassis and a bunch of wood and some electronics lying around. And it's super cheap. The team spends very little on it, and it gives you a lot of experience with prototyping. And competition and theory and strategy and kickoff, which is really fun. For our practices during the winter break, during the fall, we do 1 practice every single week on Tuesdays, 4:30 to 8:30. That gives us about 4 hours. And then in the spring, we will do 4:30 to 8:30 practices on Tuesday and Thursday. And then 1 on Saturday, which is 10 to 4, something like that. It's like 6 hours. And so the idea is, if you notice, we go over dinner time. From 4:30 to 8:30 is a weird time to do it. That's because we provide our students dinner twice a week, every week during the spring. That is a really cool way that we get parent involvement. We require every single student who joins the team to provide 2 meals. And if a parent can't afford that, the team might cover it. If a parent can't find the time, we'll work with them and see if they can find a time. What I'm saying is we're very flexible with parents on how we do that, which means we end up with a lot of really cool meals and a lot of very different cultural meals, which is always a blast. And then for extra practices during the season, we have those 3 main ones, and then we also have 2 additional ones. Those 2 additional ones are on Monday and I think Friday. Wednesdays might be from last year. And those are 4:30 to 8:30 as well. So we have up to five practices every single week during the build season. But during CAD week, or if there's like a week in between competitions where we don't necessarily need the in-person time, we'll give our mentors a break, and we'll have during CAD week, we'll have our students meet online. Or if it's in between competitions and we just don't need the time super actively, then we might also just take a couple days off. It's really important to us that we keep in mind burnout. So what's cool about our really big structure is that we actually ask people to know when they need to step back. A big part of the philosophy on NoMythic is that we trust students to be emotionally mature. And what that means to us is saying, hey, we have 5 practices a week you can come to, but you have to figure out when you can't do it anymore. So when you need to do your homework, when you need to do your things. We do check in on homework to make sure you can go to competitions. That is part of this whole 5 meetings a week structure. But we also leave space for people to take a step back. So if you need to take a step back, even during the regularly scheduled practices, like one of those required practices, we'll say, yeah, go do your homework. It's totally chill. So yeah, as long as we know our students are engaged and trying to show up, we require 70% attendance to show up to competitions. If they don't meet that, but we know they're still actively being engaged and doing their best and trying to get their homework done, we still welcome them with open arms to competition. And that's a flexible system, and we check in with each and every student to make sure that happens. If you fall below the 70% and we can't get a hold of you and you're not showing up and you're not communicating, we won't invite you to competitions. So that's generally how it goes. I think we had 98% attendance to Duluth last year and something close to that in 10K. So we get most of the students up there, which is really cool. Yeah, that is competitions.
Yeah. So when we think about awards and like administrative stuff, obviously that has a lot of data. So these are just some of the tools that we use. Obviously Google Drive, Slack, Monday.com, we just started transitioning over to due to Trello no longer being free for teams to use. And some unique things that our team uses, we keep 2 handbooks for our team, our full team handbook and our mentor handbook. These are, I know the team handbook is updated annually. I don't know how much for the mentor handbook, but these are places where we document all of our different processes. I think the team handbook is like over 50 pages long. And I think only Michael and I have actually read the full thing. But those are just really important tools for us to sort of document how do we do things on the team. We also, similarly, we have our NoMythic pattern language, which is a set of documents all about how do we build robots and how do we program them. So that's like, what are best practices for wiring? How do we go about prototyping? How do we design things on the computer? How do our different machines work? And how do you get trained in on them? Those are all really important documents for us that we've been working on for the past couple of years. And I think eventually we'll make public. I'm not too sure.
Some of those are already public on our Open Alliance from last year. Some of those are going to be made public within the next year or 2.
Yeah. And then what's really important for us is obviously communication with parents. And so we do that both through a parent Slack channel, but also through our internal website. This is a private website for people just on the team or parents of people on the team or mentors or whatever. And so that holds all of our information on how you do meals and how to register for competitions, packing list for competitions, all those sort of things. So those are just some of the tools that we use for data storage and documentation.
Our retreats, we love them on this team. We've got 3, the full team retreat, the captain's retreat, and the mentors retreat. So the mentors retreat, obviously I'm not a mentor, but the mentors take an overnight in the middle of summer to learn a lot about their roles. They have one of the hardest jobs in the world, which is taking care of a bunch of high schoolers, 30 of them in our case. And it is a tiring job. So they spend the weekend learning about their job, learning to bond and support each other, and sharing tips and tricks, seeing what the team needs and how they can best support it. The captain's retreat, more than an excuse to eat really tasty homemade pizza. Leadership is scary. Speaking as this being my first year as a student captain, it's a scary thing to step into. So the captain's retreat is an amazing way for new captains to learn about the role, returning captains to give tips and tricks, and all of us to come together as a team. The captain's retreat this year, it was a lot of information, but it was one of the most fun weekends of my summer. There was a lot of sharing about what it looks like to be a captain, but there was also badminton, and there was playing this game called You're a Tree, and it was one of the most fun things in the world. And then the full team retreat, more than an excuse to eat tasty homemade pasta. The full team takes a ride up north to a cabin where we spend 2 nights. In some people's cases, they can stay as long as they want throughout the whole retreat. But generally, it's a 2.5 day trip where the team gets to bond and connect and learn about the team. It's also a place where we set goals and kind of look at who we want to be as a team this season. And the great thing about doing it, on this trip is we really are given so much time to think through this and have everybody's opinions be heard. Coming into the team for your first time, it can be scary to talk over, or to talk alongside people who have been on the team for a while. So getting to do this overnight where we are, we're all in our pajamas, we're all tired, we all want to take a nap, and we're all, here together, it opens the conversation up in a really good way and makes all of us able to see each other as friends, as peers, as a team. So we seriously love our retreats here on NoMythic. They're a super core part of how we make our team the place that it is.
And a note on the team retreat. A note on the team retreat. We are actually able to do that really cheap. It might sound expensive to go and stay overnight. It's not for us. And the way we get away with that is we ask people to carpool up. Mentors often are willing to do that. We have an alumni provide the cabin. So it's just their little family cabin. So we have a lot of people tent. We have a lot of people sleep on the floor. We have a lot of people sleep on couches. Only a few get to sleep in the beds. And then the food is only like $300 for 5 meals. So that's pretty much the budget, is like $300 for the whole thing.
And what I was going to mention is having to do with the mentors retreat. This is how our mentors build community with each other. Obviously, being a team is important to have a community, but also as a mentors team. So this mentors retreat has been really important for mentor retention. I calculated it out across our 17 mentors. We have over 84 years worth of time on the team, which means that on average, our mentors have been on the team with us for 5 years, which is really cool to think about, and a lot of experience that these mentors have. And so mentor retreat has been super helpful with that. Our mentors become friends with each other, right? Like my mom's a mentor and she goes over to the other mentors' houses for dinner or whatever. And so I think the mentors do like a book club sometimes or something. And then once build season comes around, they actually do weekly meetings just with the mentors. And so those are really important, sort of thinking about, competitions are coming up. Is there something we need to do for that? Or, one student is having struggles at practices. What can we do to support that student? And so that's been super helpful in building mentor retention, building mentor community. And so that no single mentor has to feel like they have to do all the work. The entire community of mentors can chip in and help with the work. Liam, this is your slide.
All right, sweet. What we do a lot of things. And other than just build robots, obviously you guys know we build robots. We do outreach fundraisers, and we do a lot with other teams. So outreach is a really big deal to us. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's actually an event at the Mall of America on Halloween. So me and many other high schoolers give up their Halloween evenings, at least for the first half, and we show kids how to drive robots. It's actually a program that is set up by an allergen-free organization where it's to get kids to have an alternative to candy, which is really cool. And that means we have to be super allergen sensitive. We wipe off the controllers after each thing. It's great. But we have little kids learn how to shoot balls and drive a robot. And some of them, they just walk up and it's like, oh, this is just like a video game. This is boring. But some of them walk up and their eyes light up. And it's amazing. When I was younger, I actually, the way that I got into robotics was from going to an expo, and there was a team there. And it was, ironically, I think it was the summer of 2015. So I got to drive a tote stacking robot, and it was awesome. And the high schoolers showed me how to do it. And I just remember like it woke me up to this. And here I am now, team captain of a pretty cool team, if I will say so myself. We also do unicorn dodgeball. The robot was broken that day, but most of the time we have a dodgeball robot from 2020 where we shoot at our unicorn mascots, which is pretty fun. We also do the bracelets thing, which was run by, I believe, Green Machine. It's called the Swift Initiative, which I forget what that stands for or what that is. But I love that the idea is that you all bead bracelets together and you trade them at competitions. It's really cool. So we also participated in that and gave things for students to do that in the practices. And then, we also do a collaborative scouting alliance, which is it's one of the largest scouting alliances in Minnesota, to my knowledge, where we have I think Dominic, how many teams did we have on board last year? Your mic is muted.
I think we had 9 or so across our 2 competitions.
So this is probably one of the biggest undertakings that we do every single year, where we provide a scouting system for 9 teams across different competitions. And actually there was an instance this year of teams who were scouting with us at 10K, going to their away competition and using our system without us there. That means we provided technical support that weekend, and we gave them all of the tools that we use with that data. And what that means is that we get to provide fewer scouters and give our students more breaks. And there are some downsides to that, you have less control over each individual scouter. But to counteract that, we actually have scouting parties where we invite a bunch of teams and a bunch of people to our places, specifically the scouting leads on other teams. And we have them learn how to use the system, make sure we go through questions with them, and we make sure that they know what kind of data that the system needs. So we're getting consistent data across our systems. We also run a bumper workshop. We invite any teams from the hub to come to our shop and learn how to make bumpers, which is a really big deal. And with new bumpers, I'm excited to see how that goes this year. So we do a lot with other teams, which is awesome.
Another really important thing we do, especially when thinking about our mission, is FLL and FTC. This year we have 4 FLL teams and 1 FTC team. And so those are really important for us. We have FRC students being mentors for those teams. And that's sort of, again, how we play into that mission of, growing the next generation of passionate problem solvers. So these are really fun. Our FTC team actually meets in our shop, and then FLL meets in a science classroom. And then what's also interesting with our team is we also do the Lego summer camps. Using those materials from FLL, we had 4 weeks this year run through our school. And that's actually a really significant part of our budget. You'll see next slide. But I think it makes almost 8% of our revenue every year, which is really cool thinking about, both, giving these younger students experience in STEM and sparking that passion, but also giving our older students on the FRC team, giving experience to mentoring and teaching, and thinking about, how do you show someone how to solve a problem without solving it for them? And so, that's always interesting to see these young kids and that's their robot right there, and that's all student built, and so it's fun seeing all of that stuff. This is the last slide. This is just some fun facts that I thought would be important to share. You can see there, that's our projected revenue budget for next year, totaling around $82,000. And you can see Lego Camps there with the 8%. And if any of you were at 10K last year, we're to blame for the 140 middle schoolers wandering around the competition. So if any of you were in the pit and you had middle schoolers trying to ask you about your robot and your team, you're welcome, or we're sorry. I don't know which one to say. Another important thing at competitions we like to do, especially for our home competitions, is giving tours to our sponsors. It's always fun for them being able to see, where their money is going, and competitions are really a great way for them to get in on the action. And it's also great for alumni to get sort of back connected with the team. Thinking about mentors, 5 of our mentors, of our 17 mentors, are alumni, and 10 are parents of either current students or alumni. So that's really cool to see, and that's sort of where a lot of our mentors either started coming in or still are there. This summer, we set up our own 501c3 organization, which is really cool. Our mentors have been putting in a lot of work for that. And so if any of you have questions, I mean, we're still in the process, so we aren't necessarily experts in it, but if any of you have questions about how to do that, you can email our team email. And we've received our Team Spirit Award 4 times. Funny enough, 3 of those 4 times were in the past 2 years. We like to think of ourselves as a really passionate team, but that really has only started in the past 3 or so years. And so, yeah, we had that in 2012, and then we had 2 last year, or two years ago, and 1 last year. And so, yeah, that's been fun. And then that's it. Yeah, so that's our team email if you have any specific questions, or we can just take them right now. Go for it, Scott.
I'm curious to know how many students you turn away each year. How many? So you have this application process or interview process. How big would your team be if you let everybody who's interested join?
So this year, I think we had something like 17 applications or so for around 9 spots. But I know, like, when I was joining the team 2 or 3 years ago at this point, I think we had over 30 applications for like 12 spots. So we would definitely be a larger team. But I mean, you have people that apply 1 year and then get in the next year. And so, that's, how some people.
And then when you say spots, are you trying to have an equal distribution of students across the grades, or are you only bringing in freshmen and sophomores, or how does that work?
It depends on the year. This year we were especially looking at bringing in 9th and 10th graders, especially given that I think seniors, we have about a quarter of the team this year being seniors, but I know 11th graders, I think almost 40% of the team is 11th graders. And so we definitely try and get 9th and 10th graders onto the team, but it's also looking at, will you be engaged? And then also looking at where do we have spots on sub teams. So, this year on programming, we didn't have any graduating programmers last year. And so there weren't that many spots on programming to fill. I think we took on 1 new student and 1 student who had been on the team previously and then had left for a year and then returned. But then build, we had like 5 or 6 spots open. And so it really depends on the sub team, depends on where students' interests lie, and all that sort of stuff. Good. Red, do you have a question? I think your mic is muted if you are speaking.
Sorry, I forgot I was named Red on here. Google thought my actual name is Blue. Google thought I was a bot, so I had to make an account named Red. Anyways, back to the websites. Do you guys host that on your own server, or do you use like Squarespace or something?
I know the answer to that one. So the proper team website that you can go and search up on Google, that is hosted by one of our mentors' companies. They host a little server, which is cool. It's for free. And then for our internal website, that is just a Google site, which is hosted by their servers.
Okay, thank you.
Eric?
You mentioned that a large portion of your budget is from student fees. How does that work?
Yeah, so our student fees, we have typically between 2 and 3 fees, depending on if we go to champs. So we have a general team fee that we ask for in the fall, and all of these fees are on sliding scales, and so we give a recommended amount, but honestly, the requirement is just more than $0 as contribution, and so our regular team fee is $250, and I think that is the same for our Duluth travel fee, and then I think champs is like $500. But again, right, these are sliding scale fees. We're super fortunate that a grant that we receive allows us to do the sliding scale fees, and so you end up, we do that in the name of equity, and so you have some people paying, $5 or $20 for their fees, but you have some people who are, more generous and are even paying 2 or 3 times the recommended amount, so that they cover the fees for other students, which has been super helpful, sort of balancing the checkbook and all that stuff.
Okay, that makes more sense if you're including your travel fees as other than just team fees. So, thanks.
Yeah. Lily?
Hi, I'm Lily from 3926, and I was wondering if you could give me more details on like FTC teams, because 3926, like this is our like second year doing FTC, so it'd be nice to have some tips.
Liam, do you want to talk on that?
What do you mean by tips? Do you mean tips about running them, starting them?
Yeah, like running FTC and stuff in general, because we're kind of like struggling to like get the FTC team like going as far as like we want it to. Thanks.
Sure. So what our structure looks like is we have one lead mentor who outside. They're not involved in FRC. They're mentors just involved in FRC and FTC and FLL. So there's a lead mentor for each program. For FLL, it works a little bit differently. We have parent volunteers come in and help mentor for that, which is enough because it's Legos and it's simpler, and a lot of it's just wrangling elementary schoolers. And then for FTC, we actually we have one lead mentor, one longtime mentor, and then we have mostly parents who come in for that, which is exciting. And we actually have one professional engineer, which is cool. And essentially, the way we do that is we have that lead mentor work on the lead mentor and returning students from the year before. They work on recruitment, where they put out posters and they say, "Hey, come join us," and they go to the school's recruitment fairs. And they all come down and they do that kind of stuff. And then for actually running it, we don't hold a team captain for that because we just hold middle schoolers mostly for that. And then we also throw in a couple high schoolers. It's a weird mix, but weirdly it works because the high schoolers like mentor the middle schoolers, and then the middle schoolers look up to the high school, and so it's a good dynamic. And because we only meet like once or twice a week for shorter periods of time, we don't do dinners. It is pretty self-sufficient. So yeah, that's what that looks like.
I would also say our FTC team is like nowhere near as competitive as our FRC team. I think they went to a tournament last year where there were 13 teams there, and I think they were either ranked 12th or 13th. And so it's really more of just a learning opportunity and a great way for students who didn't necessarily make it onto the team to sort of still get experience in robotics. And then next year when they apply to the team, they often get in or whatnot. So that's sort of how we see FTC teams. Ben?
So on your team structure, we're doing something similar this year. I'm from DNA 4009, and in the past we've had like 4 captains, including the team captain, but this year we're doing 2 build, 2 business, 1 safety, and then team captain. And then with that is we've always had a few leads more than maybe we need. But how do you guys have your leads? Because similar to yours, adding all of our leads with our captains, that's more than 50%, probably close to like 75 or 80% of our team. So how do you like what one of our thoughts this year is leads. They're more of like the student that's knows more about it. So they're there to answer questions, but it's not as much of a leadership position as maybe it has been. So how do you guys like how would delegation go with you guys and your leads system?
I'll take that.
Talk about
Dominic, this is your show. Do you want me to take it or you take it?
you get Liam. How about you talk about how board works, and then Guy, do you want to talk about how sort of lead captain relations work?
Great. So the board meeting is a meeting that we have once every single week, where captains have to come and spend an hour just talking about the team. And so we had sub-team reports where they give a report on where the sub-team is at. Off-season, that might be, we're working on these sub-projects, and this is what's happening. And on-season, if the build team, for example, the robot's here, and we need this, and this is where it's going wrong, and this is how behind we are, and that kind of stuff. But then we also talk about budget and events and adding to the team handbook and all that kind of stuff. The leads are not part of that. So the captains really are like much more so the leaders of the team. And the captains also spend another additional hour outside of practice on calls with other mentors. So they have a board meeting, which is with the captains. And then they have a sub-team meeting, a lead meeting specifically, where it's the captain and often their leads, along with a couple mentors, where they talk about how the sub-team is doing. They get ready for that report for later in the week with the boardroom, and they just think about, okay, where are the students at? How can we train them better? All that kind of stuff. And so we actually have our captains spend a lot of time outside of practice, consciously thinking about how best to spend our time in practice. And so we do those two meetings off season and on season to really make sure we are efficient with our time every time we're meeting up. And so I spend nutty amounts of hours, but most captains spend 4 to 6, I would guess, outside of practice working on the team. So yeah, it's a big role. Right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just one question about that before. So then for those meetings with the sub teams and those captains meeting, is that outside of practice and you meet like on a other day?
So in season, the board meetings are inside of practice, but the sub team meetings are always outside of practice, and then the board meetings are outside of practice during the fall. And really, the way that works is the sub-team meetings feed into the boardroom meetings so that the boardroom meetings can run smoothly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And those are both virtual meetings. We do them as Slack huddles. So
Okay, got it. That would be so nice.
And the role of our leads is actually very similar to what your team is looking at, Ben. On NoMythic, when I think about like our operations, which is essentially the same as your business team, we have an events lead and a social media lead, and how we kind of think about it is what we expect of them is to know the ins and outs of their area. So for instance, if we look at our social media lead, it's they know what the format is of how we post on each of our social medias and when we need to get things out and stuff like that. And they really like help us in the areas where captains can't always like have an eye and an ear, and they allow us to make sure that we're covering all these different areas. But a lot of that work usually happens in practice with teaching and teaching new students, here's how we do these areas and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Lily?
Oh, so like I'm leading like what do you call it, programming team for 3926 this year, and I was wondering like how do you teach on NoMythic, and how does like those like teaching sessions like and what you learn during like the season like affect the sub team meetings outside of practice, and how does that work?
I think it really depends on the sub team. But one of sort of the pedagogy that we follow on the team is I do, you watch, like I lead, you follow, we do it together, you lead, I follow, you do, I watch. And that's both in terms of mentor to student learning and also like experienced student to new student learning. And so that is sort of saying when we do a task, right, the first time we do it, you're going to be watching over my shoulder. And then the second time we do it, maybe we are both side by side at the computer doing it. And then the third or whatever future times, you're at the computer and I'm watching over your shoulder. And so that's sort of how we do it a lot of the times. I also know on programming, we have like a Java training course that we have new students work on, especially in the fall. And I think in Build, they also do like workshops of like, oh, this is how you operate machines. And we've also been making like training videos on like how to operate the Xcarve and how to operate the mill and that sort of thing. And so those are sort of some of the ways that we do training and teaching on the team. Scott?
I was wondering if you could share what discussions have come up on your team recently with your Chief Delphi post about making it to champs. I personally have not had a chance to read through the thread, but I have seen lots of conversation go through KnightKrawler Slack about your Chief Delphi topic that you created. So as long as we've got your attention, I'm curious to know what conversations you're having within your team.
So that was on a whim, actually. I posted that on a whim, not expecting the massive outpouring of support and love from the mega teams that we saw on that thread. But NoMythic, to preference this, to preface it, whatever the word is, NoMythic likes to dream and dream big. So last year we felt we fielded a robot deserving of champs, which we did. If you go by the New Year's ranking system, we would have qualified. But we fielded one of the best robots we've ever made. And so our goal now is to take the next step and say, okay, how do we compete even higher? How do we go to Einstein? And that feels far out, and it is. And it might not happen this year, but it might not happen next year. It might happen the year after, the year after. Our goal is to get there someday. And if someday has to happen, someday starts today. So that's the theory behind going to Einstein's, and that's why we're pushing to go to Einstein's. And so we've actually had a lot of conversations behind the scenes about, and it's really pointing out where do we need to improve. And so it's pointing out consistency is the way to improve. It's specifically in that thread, a lot of people stated, don't try and go to Einstein's. It's a bad idea. You're going to overextend. And instead, what we're seeing from that thread is don't overextend yourself. Be 1000% ready for your first competition and be 1000% consistent and make sure you know your robot inside and out, and you will find success. And so we are really looking at how do we refine our systems so we can get our robots to a very competitive level in terms of consistency and quality. And instead of trying to do everything, how can we do the things we pick very, very well? But yeah, we actually haven't had a in-person practice since we've made that post, which is nuts. So I'm sure we'll continue to have more conversations surrounding it. Yeah.
Liam, can I jump in for a second?
Please do.
Just because Scott, you posted the post on a whim, but the conversation leading up to that post was definitely not on a whim. I mean, it came out of a conversation about what are our team values, what are our dreams for the years ahead from our team retreat. And what we're really trying to like figure out for ourselves is where does a goal like Einstein sit? And we're sort of thinking of it right now as sort of an operational like um, an outcome that we want someday. And so what do we have to do to make sure we're moving in that direction? So it's both aspirational, but also um, functional in the sense of guiding major decisions around what are we going to invest in? How do we want to how do we want to allocate our resources? How do we want to allocate our energies? And when we think about designing a robot, are we thinking about a robot that, like, where do we want this robot to be able to perform? And so I think that's where it's really helping push us to challenge our own assumptions of what are we doing that is working, and also what are we doing that isn't working. And if we actually want to play at that level, what do we have to change about our team so that we can get there? So I'm finding it really useful that way. But it's also not a goal of like, hey, this is how we're going to define this season. It is a goal in the sense of these are the things that we dream about.
I'd also say that like it came from a very good place of awareness that this goal was made, because looking at our team and the spot that it's in now, I think it's safe to say that this is like the most driven our team has, like one of the most driven periods in our team's history. And it is a conversation and goal that we are bringing the whole team into. So I think, when we say that, we want to do what we can to make it to Einstein's, it is this big dream, but it also comes from this understanding that, we believe that this is something that we can achieve. We see our team and what it is now, and we see it as something that, yes, we can work towards Einstein's. We're there. So, it's a big dream, but it's also one that comes from us, really working to like examine where our team is and what we want to be.
Lou?
Hi, this is Blue from 3206 again. Looking at your leadership structure, it is a lot more rigid than ours. Our leadership structure is like incredibly flexible. And so I was wondering, what are some of the benefits that you've seen from your structure, and also some of the like drawbacks that you've had from this rigid leadership structure?
Well, a great example of a benefit is, if you, I think I chucked the document in the chat, is the MERT. So MERT is a rapid set. It's a people who make a rapid set of decisions when we need to make them. We choose to try and have as many people in decision making as possible, especially when it comes to large robot decisions. But in very specific cases, we have MERT meet. Additionally, what you see from a really rigid structure is in pit, for example, high intense situations, we can know exactly who to go to. It's Clover. Clover is going to be the person who makes every call when the robot's broken. And then those kind of moments can bleed into the season and like when a robot comes back broken from falling off the table, you have to have a person exactly who is going to be in charge and who you know exactly who to go to. But with the rigid structure means that we have almost every single person apply for the captain spot every single year, and most of them don't get captain spots, which sucks. It means that not everyone gets that opportunity to be a leader in quite the same way. It also means that it means the people who aren't in a defined spot often feel as though they cannot take leadership. It is something we are working on instilling in our culture, that anyone at any time can be a leader or a follower if they choose to be. But it does leave an impression on most students that they can't necessarily do that. But overall, we find that our rigid structure really benefits us in those stressful, intense, important moments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think also going off of that, sort of building off of Liam, even when it's not stressful, it's really helpful to have just one person there to hold sort of the plan for whatever you're doing, right? So, like, thinking about this year, thinking about I'm going to be leading the impact award submission and I'm going to be the one holding that sort of process. And so, thinking about having one person there that can hold the process and has that sort of authority to do that has been really helpful as well. Because, like, I know last year I was the awards lead and I was also supposed to be holding the impact award process, but I didn't feel like I had the authority to do that. And so it was really difficult. But giving people these titles have been really helpful, giving them also the confidence to become leaders as well has been super helpful.
So like your team seems to like have pretty good like communication with parents and stuff, and like I want to know like more about how you get better communication with parents and how does that positively like benefit your team having really good communication with parents.
Toby, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I'm Toby McAdams. Can you hear me? Cool. Maybe I'll even try turning my camera on. There we go. And I'm one of the mentors who works with parents a lot. And we try to think of parents as, I mean, they're part of our community. It takes a village to do this project, a big village. And so we ask a lot of our parents, but we also try to bring our parents in, keep them in the loop on things, try to create events for them sometimes, try to make sure that we have good contact information for them. Because parents already so far have had to fill out a parent permission insurance information form. We're starting to ask them to sign up for FIRST. We're starting to ask them to do the fees. We're asking them to sign up to do 2 meals every year, and 2 meals for the team is a massive ask for parents. 2 meals for 45 people is kind of something outside of most people's comfort zone. But we've had a parent meeting too, where we got to start to get to know people. We've set up a structure to have somebody ready to welcome parents when they arrive with this meal that they've managed to create. So, sort of all the things that we can do to make this feel more structured for parents, to make it feel more reliable, to make it feel like a community, and for them to understand why we're asking these big things. Lily, does that help?
I would also say in terms of like logistics as well. I know, like I mentioned, we have like a parent Slack channel. I think you also have like a parent email list that you send out emails from. And then like I know one of our parents runs like a Facebook group for parents of the team. And so those are all sort of different avenues that we use to contact parents. Jeremiah?
Hey, Lily. We are not as tight as NoMythic. Nice presentation, by the way, guys. That was really, really awesome. Just seeing a bunch of students, just doing an awesome job. I'm just sitting back, just smiling. But to your question, Lily, my district went on to requiring that everybody do a band app communication. And so what I've done is in our band app, in our band, I have a chat there for parents. I real like my first, pretty much our first two years, it was a solo effort for the most part, like a one man circus I was running here, and my wife would help me here, and then I rubbed my cousin into it, and and I learned that from listening through these conversations on here. I've figured out different way. I learned different ways um, to be direct with parents. Like, hey, can you please help us with this? And can you please? So last year we had several parents, hosted uh, concession stands where they prepared a food, no, a meal that is served at basketball games, and then whatever revenue they got from there went to the robotic team. We had a dad. I kid you not. I was on the phone with this man on my way to school, needing game element. Before the end of that day, he was 90% done bringing them home to deliver them. So part of that is a learning curve as I'm learning myself too, because it takes a lot to ask other people for help when you don't want to be an inconvenience to them, because some people have different amount that they can tolerate and you don't know that's necessarily, and then you don't want to kind of like, whoa, this is too much, but if you don't ask, you never will know. So just being able to, our general team communication goes out to everyone on the team, including the parents, because some of my kids are terrible communicator with the parents. So I kind of send it out there. So then if the kids miss it, the parents would get it. And then one way or the other, everybody's still in the loop. But then when there are specific things you want, you kind of have to ask, for a parents meeting and say, hey, this is where we are. And I'm speaking as I'm talking to you, I'm making a note of we need to host 2 parents meeting before our season kickoff starts. But this is the calm before the storm, and that's kind of when you want to get those things logistically in place, because when a chaos start, then you can go back to whatever you've put into motion.
Well, we're running up against 8:30 here. Does anybody have any final questions, or NoMythic folks, do you want to make any final closing remarks?
Real quick, I'll mention I chucked way too many documents in the thread. Some of these are incomplete, and I should have. And I believe I listed them in the description of the documents. But they are there for your use. If you have questions about it, shoot us an email, which is on the screen. But we work hard to document all of our stuff.
Anything else? Going once, going twice. Thank you so much to NoMythic. Hey, how about a round of applause for the group? You guys did an excellent job. As an inaugural kind of get to know a team, you guys knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. Tough act to follow, I think. But that's not to say you folks shouldn't try. So it'd be great to have another team willing to sort of show us behind the curtain and see how their team runs. Next week, we have Talon, who's going to give a presentation on how they've shifted their training around this year and the impacts they're seeing. So I look forward to hearing about Talon, talking about that. Is there? Oh, Rai has a question. Go ahead, Rai.
If someone wanted to bug another team to sign up to do one of these, how would they do that?
What do? Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. If there was another team who I wanted to recommend to sign up to do one of these presentations, what would there be, like a document that I'd point them to?
Or? So Dominic knows all about this because he signed up for this one, but there is a Sign Up Genius link, and it goes out in the weekly email that I send out every week. So if you're not on the mailing list, if you go to team2052.com/roundtable, that's where you'll be able to find the links to sign up for the mailing list, to add the thing to your calendar, to pick a topic. I don't know, sign up to host. Yeah, there's a link there for sign up to host. So that's where you would send them to say, hey, can you sign up and give a talk about your team? And if you're not on the mailing list, I know that a lot of teams, they just have one person on the mailing list and then they throw it out in the Discord, throw it out in the Slack. But if you want to be on the mailing list, you can also do that there. So you get your own emails, make it easy to find the meeting if you like to do that. Team2052.com/roundtable. Good question. I should have been mentioning that. I have not mentioned that the first 2 meetings of the year, and I need to do a better job of that. So thank you for mentioning that. Any other questions? All right. Well, anyway, once again, thank you so much. This was really great presentation. I hope we get more teams willing to do this because I think there's a lot teams can offer by doing this. And I think a lot of teams, especially those that are watching it on YouTube, probably multiple times would be my guess, will go back and take a closer look at your leadership structure, look at some of your fundraising stuff. You can always get so much good stuff when we talk to other teams. So once again, thank you so much. And we will see everybody next week when Talon gives us a training talk.